Welcome to the Grow Like a Mother podcast. I am your host, Jill. I'm a time management expert, and today I'm really excited because I have a special guest who is here to talk to us about a topic that I haven't covered on the podcast before, which is always so fun for me. Cindy's a registered holistic nutritionist. She's an eating psychology counselor and an eating disorder recovery coach. And she specializes in culinary and functional nutrition. So, what that means is that she helps women transform their food relationships so that they can let go of disordered eating, food guilt and shame, and regain their health and reclaim their life with confidence and freedom, which sounds incredible. Cindy offers one-to-one counseling as well as online classes, weaving her areas of expertise by infusing nutritional education with emotional and mental guidance and culinary passion. It's her mission to help women make realistic long-term life changes for thriving in health, in mind and body. This all sounds like exactly what we need. Thank you so much for being here, Cindy, with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jill. I'm excited to be a part of your community, have a
Yeah,
little glimpse of what's going on. It's great.
it's so fun. And I think that this topic is so timely and so needed for many of us. I know, like right before we hit record, too, we were talking about this whole phenomenon of perimenopause. And so many of us are heading into this. And nutrition can be such a supportive tool during that phase of our journey as women. But a lot of us still struggle with the disordered eating that we picked up along the way. And so I'd love to start this conversation. We'll sort of I want to guide the conversation into how to like fix the past and so we can prepare for what's coming hormonally for us. But let's start with like what is disordered eating? What is the description of that? How do we know if we sort of fall into that category?
Yeah, I love that question. And I love this topic so much. I could talk about it all day. Um, so disordered eating, I think it can be a little confusing for people because we are so used to having labels in and around um, eating disorders. And disordered eating is actually a much broader topic. It includes, habits and behaviors that are simply negative or not supportive for the individual. And so this can be pattern behaviors, this can be negative mindset, this can be, body image, dysmorphia, lots of different areas of dysfunction and disorder. So, like I really like to say to my community that if your relationship with food is getting in your way in life, in your mind, in your heart, in your emotional being, then that qualifies as disordered eating. So we do not have to have a diagnosable eating disorder in order for us to have a negative relationship with food that is impacting us in a very large way.
Mm-hmm. And I think that is so encompassing that all of us can sort of identify either something we're currently doing where we're having a challenge or something in our past where we may have encountered this or someone that we know and love who's struggling through this as well. So it's very broad. It's very kind of inclusive is a weird word to use, but I feel like we're all impacted by this in some way. And I'm curious to know what specifically drove you towards this line of work and research.
Hmm. Yeah, we are very deeply impacted by it. I think just living in the world that we live in today. Yeah, have my own story, of course, that led me down this road. I was a competitive gymnast growing up, and the kind of aesthetic sport relationship and was very impactful, as well as that transition from sport to regular life as in my late teens. And then, I think it's very common for aesthetic sport young people to have difficulty transitioning back into regular life, and or maybe, I don't know, regular life, quote unquote, right? What is that? And so for me, I developed an eating disorder that really became a real big beast in my life, and that really swung me in a difficult direction for a really long time. And then when I, finally kind of was in a little bit of a recovery in a better place in my early 30s. I got pregnant with my son, and that was a real big motivator for me. But after the pregnancy, my son was about a year and a half. I got colon cancer, and so the colon cancer journey, interestingly enough, for me, I feel like it was actually a very big gift because it really showed me that I had all this old work to do that I hadn't done yet. And even though I wasn't necessarily deep in the throes of the eating disorder anymore, I had just so much pain and old trauma and, limiting beliefs and whatnot that was really deeply woven into my fabric that was getting in my way. So as I recovered from the cancer, I also ended up going down a very deep recovery journey that led me into the world of nutrition and getting all these great trainings that has supported me in becoming the support for other women that I really wish I had had when I was younger.
I love that you did that. And I think it is so wonderful when people sort of create the support that they wish that they had had,
Mhm.
because there are so many things that we are, as like a more conscious kind of society these days, we're aware of these things and we're doing it for the first time, right? There isn't a generation behind us or supports behind us necessarily that are easy to go into to find what we need. And so I love that as people are going through journeys, they make it into something that can help others, much like you did, which is fantastic. I'd love to know a little bit about the community that you build and the type of women that you work with. Like what is your sweet spot? What's your zone of genius and who do you love to work with?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I love working with women, period. I am a woman. I'm very strongly connected to my women tribe. And so I work definitely predominantly with women. I have worked with men as well, but I do work predominantly with women, usually in the mother range. Most of my clients are somewhere between 30 and 55, now working a little bit more with perimenopause, menopausal women as well, who have like this deep past. Maybe it's still, showing up in their lives a lot. Some of my clients are, deep into binge eating and real heavy duty disordered, dysfunctional habits and behaviors. And others are simply just wanting to free themselves from that old mindset that they never really healed, because they are mature and they want to live, a thriving life without that because it's holding them back and or it's affecting their children now that they're mothers. So, that is, as you say, my sweet spot. I do work with younger ladies as well. I have worked with, several younger ladies in their teens and early 20s. But that is really, yeah, women. I mean, I feel like we tend to work with women our own age. It just like feels like that's the natural progression that we end up settling in. But yeah, I guess that's where I'm
Yeah.
at.
That makes so much sense. And I love how you're identifying that the work that we're doing to heal ourselves is impacting our kids. And I think that for moms especially, I've seen this in my business and in the businesses of so many women that I'm connected to and interview and just in network with, is that moms won't spend money on themselves just for the sake of themselves too often. But when we look at the impact it's having on our kids, and the work that we do, how that benefits them, then it's like, okay, now I will finally take the time, energy, and money to invest in the healing work for myself because it benefits the next generation, right? And so let's dive into that a bit. Let's talk about how disordered eating can impact our kids, like whether it's them watching our disordered eating or maybe developing some of the things on their own, whether or not it was modeled for them. Where do we even start that conversation?
Yeah, it's a big one. It's a big one. And I feel like one of the most impactful things I can say to mothers is that they are they how they model, how they do everything will impact their kids, no matter how much, they may try to hide, those little dark spots that we all have, or those habits and behaviors that are maybe not the best. Um, what you do and how you are and how you communicate with yourself, with others, how you treat yourself. The kids, they're sieves, like they are just going to absorb everything. And so the absolute best place to work, and I don't know, countless women who've come in to see me and they want support for their young child, and the conversation always lands on, well, hey, like, have you really done your own work yet? Because that is how you will best service your child the way that you want to, is looking after yourself. Because the more you look after yourself, the more that your children, they see that, they absorb it, no matter how little they are and how much they may or may not understand about what's happening. So yeah, it's pretty intense. It is our first, if you think back to when we are born, our first relationship with food is always with our mother, always. And even if we're not breastfed, but usually we are, and we're meant to be breastfed. And, sometimes, of course, that is not what ends up happening, and that's okay too. But the mother is nurturing, the mother is providing nourishment for the baby. And so that connectedness from a very young age, that innate connectedness, safety, the feelings of love, unconditional love, stems from our mother relationship. And so it's important as mothers, to, first of all, we can look back and have a little look at what our own relationship was like with our mother, because that is going to give us some information about our food relationship. And if we are mothers, wanting to really pass on a good relationship with food to our children, we must first start with ourselves.
I had never considered that really obvious connection with our first food experiences being so connected to our mothers. And so, of course, that relationship is important. It makes total sense when you frame it like that. I just had kind of like a mind blown moment there, and I'm curious to know, as we get older, do you see there being like any impact to the relationship of your clients, and as you're working with them through their own doing the work for themselves, does the impact with their kids, does that relationship change in a positive way, or does a certain point we're kind of like, okay, the food and mother relationship is done? Does it always continue? Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it is always there. Always, always there. And it doesn't, even when you're, even for myself as an example, like when I wasn't really, like when I really, to be, transparent, and I really did the work on myself, I was in my early 30s, late 20s. And so I obviously wasn't living with my mom anymore. And yet the work that I did on myself ended up impacting my relationship with my mom in a huge way. And it didn't even involve her. I didn't even invite her into therapy. I didn't even really talk to her about it much. It was just, I was able to work on myself enough to get to a point where I could forgive her for the things that I was holding on to, or that I thought she may have played a role in, so just as that, using that as an example, it will always impact our relationship with our kids at the work that we do on ourselves, whether it's on our food relationship or with something else, past traumas or what have you, because our kids will witness us grow. And when our kids witness us grow, they realize that, it's all right and good for them to also grow and be, develop confidence and self-esteem and all those beautiful, great things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool to see the connection backwards and forwards generationally,
Mm-hmm.
whether like you're the mother or it's your relationship with your mother.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so cool. So
Yeah.
cool. And
Yeah.
I want to sort of, before we dive into what does this look like, how do we prepare for perimenopause? A lot of the women in the audience are kind of in this zone, like if they're thinking, oh God, I maybe have some work to do, and is this the right time to do it? Because how does that impact? I want to quickly just dive and touch on the mindful nutrition resource that you're giving the audience. And guys, if you're listening, it'll be in the show notes, but I think this idea of mindful nutrition is a really important one to weave into the conversation. Can you just briefly give us some background on that?
You bet. Yeah, something I really like to say in my work is, what we eat is half the story, and who we are as eaters is the other half. So how we are with our food matters just as much, maybe more, than what we're eating. And we have this tendency to focus so like laser focus, especially with the impacts of the food industry and marketing and everything that we're bombarded with these days. We really focus in on what we're eating and what are the right things and the amounts and all of those things. And it's so important to think about who we are as eaters and how we are with our food. And so what I see a lot in the work that I do is, women who are very disconnected from their food. They're eating in a very disconnected way. They're eating on the go. They are putting their children first. So, they feed their children a beautiful meal and then they cram jam whatever they can in their mouth and run out the door. And there is this real strong disconnect between the food and the practice of eating and ourselves, our physiology, but also our emotional, mental being. And so bringing ourselves back into our harmonious relationship with food does require thinking about what food is nurturing and nutritious and feeds our soul and feeds our cells. And it's really about how we reconnect with food in a way that's very present. One of the biggest things that I will advocate for is slowing down with our food and being more present with our meals. And this is like, not to go on too far of a tangent, but this is a beautiful way to bring yourself back into a more connected relationship with your food, is to try to slow down with your meals and calm the nervous system. So this could just even look like taking the time to sit down in the sunshine on your lunch break, as opposed to eating it at the computer or cramming it in while we're standing and going in between one thing and the next. And this is a beautiful way to look after and improve your food relationship. And it is also really important for our digestive health to slow down with our food. So we see a lot of those two things in tandem now these days, where we have a poor quality relationship with food, and then we also have gut dysfunction and gut disorders happening at the same time. And they're very much connected, because what's happening in our brain will really influence what's happening in our gut. And when our brain and our gut aren't communicating, then we enhance this disconnection between food and our brain and our bodies. And we're meant to be one, right? Like what we eat becomes us. And so if we are over here busying ourselves on this and that and the other thing, as we do, then we're really not being very present with our food and our meals. And then we run into too, like overeating or eating too quickly, or, or not being concerning ourselves with what we're eating, right? So that mindful nutrition piece is so important to help us kind of reconnect with our bodies and our digestive system, and then of course our food and what we're eating, and being in a little bit more of a harmonious, respectful relationship with food.
Makes a lot of sense. And as you're describing that as well, I can't help but tie it back to the beginning of our conversation, where if you are setting an example for your children of someone who is mindful about the nutrition and the eating and the experience, you're showing them that they also deserve to slow down and that they don't have to rush. Like it is something that we all should be taking the time to do as a benefit. And if you're especially together in relationship over a meal or something, there are so many benefits of slowing down and being intentional about it. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for the resource, because I think that's going to be really helpful for a lot of listeners. And as we sort of full circle this conversation, I want to know what's like, as we're looking ahead into our upcoming years. I'm 39 this year, pretty soon, and already starting to be like, oh, perimenopause. Thank you. Welcome to my world in a small way. And I'm a little bit nervous about what it will look like when it's like actual full grown in 5 or 10 years. But what can I do, or someone who's in my situation, a listener who might be in it, experiencing it, looking down the road towards this hormonal shift in our lives, what about our nutrition do we need to pay attention to now and our relationship with eating and um yeah, where do we start?
Yeah, such a good question. Yeah, I think one of the important things to remember as we enter into this phase in our lives, I just turned 48, so I'm, right there in it, um, is that our hormones are changing. And when our hormones change, they affect the physiology of our body everywhere else. So we're now talking about, as we study perimenopause, we're talking about, over 100 different symptoms that show up. And this is why, because as the hormones change, because the hormones affect all the metabolic balances, all the firings of the different messages in the body, the health of the cells, like everything is affected by what's happening with our hormones, that, the body will change because the hormones are changing. And, does that mean, we're going to look different, or it's, that only means that we need to change with the change. Like, we need to go with the flow. And we need to embrace menopause and perimenopause as opposed to fighting it. And so I think we've kind of locked into this, like, oh my God, how do we run away from all these symptoms? Like, how do I get through it? And women saying things like, I haven't changed anything. I haven't changed the way that I eat. I haven't changed the way that I exercise. And my body's changing, and I can't sleep, and I have no energy, and I have no libido, and like all these things are happening, but I haven't changed a thing. It's because your hormones are changing. And so the physiological, wiring of the body is changing. And so it's important in moving into this transitionary phase of life to accept that things are changing and that we need to change with the hormones. And, does that mean you have to pop 1,000 supplements and fast and, eat 200 grams of protein a day? No. But there are really important things that you can pay attention to. And one of the, if I was to shine a light on just one thing right now, because we're talking about it, it would be that balancing your blood sugars is at the root of so many of these imbalances. So if we are going, because our hormone fluctuations are going to affect our insulin resistance and make it harder for us to burn calories. Some of our metabolic processes slow down. And so it's important to tune into good food. Of course, take a step back out of your life for a second and say, well, what am I eating that's maybe not serving me? The mindful nutrition piece comes in really handy there. And the other piece is like, how do I get on top of having balanced blood sugars throughout the day? Because that is going to serve you in a really beautiful way, which really looks like it's very simple. Eating every 2 to 3 hours, not skipping meals. One of the things I like to tell people is to try to combine the 3 macronutrients. I call them the magic 3. So carbs, fats, and proteins together at every meal is actually going to really help you stay in something that I like to refer to as the golden zone. Like, when we're rocking the golden zone during the day, we have better energy, we sleep better, our mood is better, we have better focus, like all these, it affects everything. And when we dip and spike out of that golden zone all throughout the day, then we really upset. Again, it's like a domino effect into lots of the other bodily systems. So that's where we have trouble managing our blood sugar. Then we have trouble managing our energy levels. We have trouble focusing. We are angry. We have more anxiety. We have more depression. It's a whole host of symptoms. And so balancing your blood sugar is a really, really important place to work. Eating every 2 to 3 hours doesn't have to be more than you normally eat. It could just be small meals throughout the day so that you're kind of topping up the tank throughout the day. And then not eating after 6 p.m. at night. And I say that not because I'm trying to focus on weight loss. That's because after 6 p.m., our metabolic system isn't really running that hot. It's slowing down for the evening and it doesn't really want to digest food. So if we continue to eat past 6 p.m., and I mean, that's not a hard rule, of course. I mean, we're busy, I get it, but just kind of like using that as a goal and then taking a break throughout the night till you eat your breakfast at maybe 8 or 9 in the morning, that gives the body a really good chance to kind of rejuvenate, look after cellular repair and regeneration, and also gives the gut a really good chance to rest and repair as well. And so that's a really beautiful rhythm, like looking at your food rhythm throughout the day. Of course, what you're eating is going to matter. But that is a really great trick that I find it helps a lot of people and it's very easy to do. It doesn't cost you any money. There's no pills involved, it's just about like resetting your eating rhythm throughout the day to help support better blood sugar balance.
That is such an insightful tool. Thank you for dropping that into the conversation because so many people are going to be able to hit, end on this episode and implement that right away. They're going to be able to start thinking like, oh, okay, how can I take what I'm normally eating, balancing the 3 macros if we can, in just spreading it out a little bit more, like being aware, being mindful. This theme is coming through the whole conversation, and I think it's going to be really helpful. I'd love to hear from listeners too. Like, reach out to Cindy and I on Instagram or Facebook, like wherever you're at. Let us know what landed and what's been working for you, and we can keep this conversation going. And I know I'd love for you to share a little bit before we go, Cindy, about the menopause or perimenopause like workshop or program that you've got going on. Can you share a little bit about that for those who are catching us sort of like at the beginning of when this is released?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a 30-day program coming up starting June 1st. I think when we're recording this, it's halfway through May. So coming up pretty quick. It's 30 days, it's all online, and it involves regular information sessions and Q&As and something I'm doing called symptom spotlights. So we'll hone in on certain symptoms. There are food lists, there are recipes, there are like diving deep into a lot of the different aspects of perimenopause. Like we're really shining the light on perimenopause because that's where a lot of the symptoms come into play, where a lot of the big hormonal fluctuations are, and a lot of women are really feeling challenged right now with this. Um, there will be a supplemental regime, and everything is personalizable however people want. I'm getting a lot of questions about like, what if I don't have a lot of time? And you can do it however you want to do it. It's the first time I'm running this program. I'm really excited about it because I have not had so many, like just in the last probably 6 months, so many women coming through my client practice just really struggling with this. And I thought, well, hey, like I'm going to throw together a program for a full month, which is like a really good amount of time to help women adjust their food habits, behaviors, really hone in on which foods are beneficial and which ones are getting in the way. And then, talking about mindset shifts, emotional balance, and lifestyle changes, movement, exercise, all those, giant pieces. And then coming at it, what I like to say when I describe working holistically, like coming at it from all sides, as many sides as we possibly can to help, this community of women that I have start to feel better, so they can live their lives feeling a lot more, confident and free from, uncomfortable symptoms and all
Yeah.
that, all that business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so fantastic. And we're going to make sure, of course, that that's linked in the show notes so people can join. And if they're listening too late and they missed it, what's another good way to start getting in community with you? Is it social media? Is your website? Like where do we send people to continue to learn from you?
Yeah, my website is probably the best place because if you hop on my website, you can join my email list and join that community where nobody on my email list misses anything. But I am very active on social media, so I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook predominantly. I'm also on LinkedIn, so those are also good places to find me and connect with me. And if anyone's interested in one-on-one counseling, all that information is there. But people can also, reach out to me directly too.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for being so open and warm, and thank you for the work that you do because it really does impact and have a ripple effect on not only ourselves, but our families, our communities. It's work that needs to be done that we're not learning in schools, we're not being taught anywhere else. And so unfortunately we have to go seek it out through episodes like this and through working with people like you, Cindy. So thank you. Thank you for being here and sharing your knowledge. It's been so fun, and I am already rethinking the rest of my weekend meals and how I can tweak it with this information in mind.
Yay, that's so great. Then thank you, Jill. Thanks so much for having me on today. It's been my pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, me too. And to everyone still listening, till next week, keep on growing like a mother.